Moving to New York City has honestly been the biggest leap of faith that I've ever taken. It's definitely a chaotic city to live in, but it's also inspiring and kind of life-changing in a way. Today, I want to share with you guys on how living in New York City for the past 2 years, now going into my 3rd year, has been for better or for worse. Whether you're thinking about moving to New York City or you're simply just curious about what living here is actually like, apart from for all the TikTok videos that you've ever seen, I want to share with you the good and the bad. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sophia. I make videos on lifestyle, productivity, and relationships. Last week's video was on my 2025 productivity system. So if you guys want to check that out and see what my goals are for this year, check that out after this video. So before moving to New York City, I feel like I was a lot more shy and in my comfort zone. I lived in a very suburban area in California, about an hour drive from LA. You kind of know the same people and it's very easy to get comfortable. I think living in a very suburban area like that for most of my childhood just made me feel more unwilling to take risks in life and kind of go out a bit more socially. And I think up until the end of college, I really didn't have a good understanding of who I was or who I wanted to be. It was hard to seek for inspiration in a city that just feels so comfortable, where everyone's kind of doing the same thing and it's not lacking as much diversity. And because of that, that naturally got me in my comfort zone a little more. I didn't have to question sort of what I wanted. I just follow the crowd a bit more. And that's where the positives of living in New York comes in for me. I really, first and foremost, wanted to get out of my comfort zone. That is and was my priority. And that was the main reason why I wanted to move to New York. I feel like New York is such a great place to be independent. Like, it really forces you to be independent. Like, you literally don't have a choice, whether it's through rent, like finances, managing your budget, finding a place to rent. Also, this might sound silly, but literally navigating the subway. I mean, seriously, when I first moved here, it was very, very stressful. I was literally about to cry. And if you moved here recently, or if you've traveled here and you've gotten lost in the subway, totally understandable, because that was me for the first week or so. All in all, I've really learned to rely on myself in ways that I never thought I could. I think the second positive thing is ambition. New York, as you probably know, is such a, if not the biggest hustle bustle city in the States. I feel like there is something so special about being surrounded by really ambitious people that make you feel a new layer of inspiration. And being surrounded by people who are just ambitious overall naturally makes me want to step up and gives me more confidence in my abilities and my decisions. For example, it definitely got me out of my shell going to these different networking events when I first moved here, meeting hundreds of people in one event in the same space, in the same room. It was very daunting even now thinking about it, but it's something that I did and I was able to make friends there as well. Moving here, I've definitely taken some wild career risks. I mean, this is definitely not something I recommend you to do, but when I first moved here, I worked at a health tech startup and it was a really stressful job in terms of just not aligning with what I wanted, and I felt like it was not a good space and environment for me to personally thrive in. Because of that, it made me want to quit my job on the spot. Definitely not something I recommend you to do, but I was just in a very bad place and it was my first time just navigating a lot of new things, being here alone. At the time, I had a month left on my lease when I quit my job, so it was definitely risky. Again, I don't recommend you to do it, but in that time, I ended up finding another job, thankfully, which is my current job at TikTok. But that was probably one of the riskiest thing I've done living here, so it really does push you out of your comfort zone. Living in New York also, I feel, has pushed me to really find myself and what I truly want, and also just meeting such a diverse group of people naturally helped me discover who I truly am. I think it's such a great place to help you embrace individuality, and honestly, it helped me to discover my passions as well. YouTube has become a bigger interest of mine because I've been surrounded by a lot of inspiring content creators here. And even just starting my community, I think I say this in pretty much every video. It's clearly been a very big passion of mine, but I don't think that I would have had the creative space and inspo. If I wasn't here, I don't think that I would have started a community like that. And then obviously, I feel like the energy in New York is just simply unmatched. Like literally, if you don't have anything to do, you can literally just walk out and something interesting will happen. You might even have an interesting conversation with someone. But now at last, we must mention the challenges. I know earlier I've mentioned that I really like the hustle bustle culture, and while that is still true, it does still get overwhelming at times. Like I feel like the constant go culture is exciting, but it can be exhausting at the same time. That type of energy can really slow me down at times as well, demotivate me at times, and make me feel like I am losing time, that I can't keep up the pace. It makes me feel like I am behind sometimes. And of course, this is probably the one that's the most mentioned, but the cost of living, I'm sure that's pretty obvious. Especially Manhattan, which is where I live, it is so expensive. And the thing is that even if you make a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's worth it, because the city itself is so compact. The apartments themselves are so small that a lot of the times it's just not worth the price, and what you're really paying for is simply the convenience. But like also, because I'm from California and the food there is really good. The coffee and matcha there are amazing as well, and coming here I just feel like I haven't found a really good coffee spot, really good matcha spot. Like I've tried a lot of different spots and ones that people hype up and the ones that are mentioned on TikTok, but I've never really found any of them to be like that good. And some of the matchas can be like $10 and I really can't justify the price. And I feel like that's a lot of what New York feels like to me. There's a lot of things that are hyped up like on social media, but usually what happens is it falls below my expectations. Like it's not as good as I thought or people talked about it to be, and it just gets me really confused and makes me feel like I should set my expectations a bit lower. And this is for both restaurants and cafes. So this next one sort of came to me as a surprise, but I think one of the, cons is the loneliness that you may or may not experience. It was a surprise to me at first because I assumed that it would be easier to make friends in a city like New York, but it's actually the opposite, because while it is easier to meet people if you go out of your way to do that, it's harder to maintain meaningful connections since those people are also busy making other connections or busy with work and stuff. So it's really hard to build consistent, sustainable connections. I feel like New York has really taught me to trust myself and my own decisions more, and I've really grown into someone who embraces challenges instead of running from them. I feel like I've become a lot more confident and self-aware. I also feel like New York has made me feel more open to new experiences. Like I've learned to say yes to things I'd normally avoid, whether it's meeting new people or trying something uncomfortable. And speaking of comfort, I feel like New York has also made me feel more comfortable in my own skin. I've stopped trying to fit into a mold and started embracing who I really am. And all in all, New York has taught me that being unique is a strength.